how many of you have heard about blockchain, right? Before this session, before this session was there. So can we have a quick yes or no in the chat box? Like, please reply yes if you have heard about it, or reply no if you have not. Right? Okay, you have heard about it. Okay, all right. There are a lot of people. Okay, okay, great, great, great. So this is the kind of response that I really want with this session. Like, now this is quite a good audience that everybody's replying, and great, great. So I think everybody's interested now to learn about what exactly we are to talk about here, right? Well, okay. So everybody's heard about it. Has anybody developed on blockchain? Is there a person who has developed on blockchain? Can we have a quick yes or no for that as well? If anybody has ever developed something on a blockchain? No, no. Okay, but everybody's heard about it. Okay. Not yet. Not yet. Right. All right. So this is what we are here for. Like, we are here to convert this not yet to something that is yes. Okay. So I think the major question that every developer has right now is, how to get started, right? So I think we should begin with this session. We'll keep this session interactive as much as possible, right? And everybody's free to follow, give their views in the chat box, right? And just about the topic, please do not give your views, that is very, very unrelated to the topic. I'll really appreciate if you stick to the topic. All right. Okay. But would like to mine crypto using blockchain. Okay. Let's see what we can do about that. For sure, but you definitely need to understand what exactly a blockchain is, right? There should be a point where you can get started, right? Let's have a talk about that, and let's see what exactly is it that we'll learn in this session, right? So what we'll try and understand is what exactly is a blockchain, right? What are the basic building blocks of a blockchain, and how a blockchain is formed? Like, what is the technology behind it, and how it could be used to create to create projects that could that have DeFi, something like DeFi, something like NFT, how it is being used to create all that, right? And then we'll focus on some basic building blocks of Ethereum. Now, Ethereum is very specific to us for this presentation because, as you can see, a lot of stuff is being built on Ethereum. We'll come to why we have focused on Ethereum for this session when we'll talk about Ethereum, right? One of the major reason is that Ethereum is basically a programmable blockchain where we can actually write code on the blockchain and execute it on the blockchain itself, right? So this is why we'll cover Ethereum, because it's something that is very, very specific to developers as such, right? And the major question, like, how as a developer can you get started? What could be the pivots, or what could be the informations that you need to get started? One of the major constituents of getting started is to connect with the community that is already there, or that is responsible in teaching about blockchain. Like, right now we are connecting with you guys onto regarding the blockchain itself, so you guys can connect with us. You can ask questions to us, right? Only then we will be able to help you guys how to get started. If you're not asking questions and are not asking the right questions, then how will you know, right? So we'll come to that, and we'll give you a brief about that as well, right? So first of all, let's understand what a blockchain really is, right? Everybody of you have heard about it, but I think none of you really know about it. So let's understand what that is. What I'll try to do is I'll try to create an analog between the blockchain as well as the databases, right? That we generally use. I think most of you have used the traditional MySQL databases, or while developing apps, or while building some websites, or something like MySQL databases, or it could be PostgreSQL, MongoDB, something like that. Most of you might have used it. Can we have a quick yes or no for that as well, so that I have an understanding? Yes. Okay. Have you mobile? Okay. All right. So lot of people. Okay. Okay. Still, majority of them are still working on PostgreSQL. Okay. All right. Great, great. So most of the people have already worked on these databases. So what we can do is we can try and relate them to what blockchain exactly is, right? So what you can see here in this image right here is that blockchain is what its name is. Like, it's a chain of blocks which are linked together, right? You there It's not exactly like linked list, but you can take a reference about it with the linked list. Like, what happens here is, let me show you with the demo like how a blockchain actually is formed and what are the basic constituents of a blockchain. So the first constituent of a blockchain is hash. Like, what exactly is hash? First of all, like, hashes are um, one-way cryptographical functions which can generate a 32-bit string, right, which is almost irreversible. Supposedly, if you have a data here, like supposedly I have hello here, right, or suppose hello world here, like, let's be traditional, right, guys? So if I have hello world here, now hello world is being hashed to this particular string here. Now this is cryptography that is taking place here. Now this is SHA 256 as well. So there is 256 byte of data that has been generated here in this hash. So this hello world will always, whenever you type this hello world and generate a 256 hash with this particular string, it will be this. It will always be this, right? But you cannot really generate hello world from this particular hash. You'll need a lot of computing power to do that. You'll need for that is basically practically impossible if we go with our current systems right now, right? So that's the case here. These are one-way functions. So the data that we feed as input is being converted to a hash, right? Which basically is irreversible, right? So this is a hash. Now all of the cryptography that is there is basically dependent on hashes, right? That there is SHA 256, SHA 512, and there are a lot more hashes as well, except the SHAs that are being used to create encryptions, to create security in the blockchain, right? So this is one constituent, which is hash. The another constituent is, of course, a block, right? In a block, there are these fields. These are very basic fields right now that are being displayed in a block. Actually, there are more than this, but right now in this lecture we are will be confined to this only, right? So what happens is that this is block height, basically number of block. Now this is the first block, so right now this is 1, right? So if this was the second block, this would have been 2. But this is block height, and but this is nonce. This is the numerical value associated for this block, and to mine this particular block, what miners have to do is guess this nonce, right? That what exactly is this nonce value. Now this nonce is related, and then we have block data, right? The data inside the block. Now this data, it could be basically anything that we can store, right? uh, for now, let's have a hello here, right? You can have different datas here, right? It's just data, right? And but as you can see, the hash changes, right, whenever we enter a data. Now this hash is formed by the block height, nonce, all of these things taking into consideration, the hash is formed. So if you change the data, right now the data was this, and if you change the data, you can see that this block invalidates, right? So it turns from green to red because the data is changed, the hash is changed. Now what we have to do is mine it, right? When we mine it, what will the mining process, how it happens is it guesses the nonce that there is of this hash value, right? So if we have to guess this nonce, we have the data, we have the height, we have to guess the nonce, and then the mining process is completed. This is a very basic explanation of what mining actually is, right? So if you mine this, so right now this should turn green. Let's see. Yeah. So now this turns green, right? Now if you change the data again, it invalidates again. So this is what a block is, right? Now what we'll talk about is blockchain. Like, we have used hashes here in this block. Let's talk about the chain of blocks, right? This is the chain of blocks. Now this is 1, 2, 3, and it will go so on and so forth, like till its lifetime. How much data you add, it depends on the then the height depends on how much data you keep on adding to the blocks, right? And now here there is one thing to notice, that we have a previous hash, right, and the current hash that there is of this block, right? So it's as you can see, because it's first block, it starts from 0, right? And this is the hash of this particular block here, the first block. What happens in a blockchain is that the previous hash, the hash of the previous block is being fed to the next block as a data. So if now what will happen is, because we have already discussed that the data, the hash is basically found by all these fields that there are. These are fed like data. So supposedly you can just convert them in your mind like a JSON data. Just that this JSON data is being fed to an SHA function, and then what we can do is to generate a hash out of it, right? You can basically feed any data to SHA functions, and then you can generate a hash, right? So if this hash is generated because of this data, which is very static, right? So this particular hash is then being fed to the next block as the previous hash. So what will happen if you change this block, right? Let's do this. Let's again then let's be traditional again, please. So let's have hello world here again, right? What happens is, as you can see, the hash changed, right? Suggesting that all the further blocks are invalidated. Why this happened? Because of the hash. Now what we have to do is mine them again, right? This is what we can do here, but in actuality what happens is the whole data that is ahead gets invalidated, right? Because this hash changed, and this previous hash, then it changed, right? So because this previous hash changed, the whole block hash, it changed, and so on and so forth. So all of the blocks are invalidated now. So this is how a blockchain works. This is how the security of a blockchain works. You cannot really come back to a block and change its data without changing the block number 2, block number 3, block number 4, and so forth. So whatever blocks are in front of that particular block, like right now it's block 1 for us, whatever blocks are there in ahead of this block will be invalidated if we change the data, the pre-mined data of a blockchain. So this is how we assure security of the data in a blockchain, right? So all right, before we move further from here, can we have a quick yes and no if everybody understood this part? This was quite basic, right? And not everybody is like ki upar se ja raha hai, please. All right, okay, great. Any questions, we'll take it at the end for sure, right? Questions at the end, right? So that the session doesn't really go, it goes according to the flow, and then we'll take the questions as well, right? So this is how a blockchain really works, right? And after that, what will happen is, if we talk about Bitcoin in specific, right? What Bitcoin does is, in this data, what we use in Bitcoin is transactions, right? So this data, what it contains is transactions. Let me see. This is the one. So if I send you money, right? So supposedly I'm sending $25 maybe to somebody, right? And what happens in Bitcoin is we store transactions in data. So this is the basic definition of what Bitcoin actually is, how blockchain is being used in Bitcoin, right? And in Ethereum, this data, these are transactions, yes, right? But in Ethereum, what happens is, in this particular data, what you can do is you can store contracts as well, right? And those contracts are executed using EVM, right? Ethereum virtual machine, where now these contracts, what these contracts are, we'll talk about contracts in details. Basically, this is data, right? You can basically store anything in data, as I told you guys already earlier. Now, what you can do is you can store a contract as well. Contract is just a piece of code. Just imagine like you're storing a class here, like just a Java class here, maybe, right? Something like that. And then what you're doing is you're calling that class for its variables. Something like this happens in Ethereum, right? So this is why we have chosen Ethereum as one of the prominent um chains here to understand for developers specifically, right? So this is what a basic structure of a blockchain looks like, right? So let's have a conversation about, what are the different uses of blockchain. So one definitely is DeFi, decentralized finance, right? And the other one is NFT marketplaces. I think Hamza, will you be would you like to take DeFi NFT here to explain the uses of blockchain? I think this is well suited for your profile as well.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
You want me to go? Right.
Yeah. Sure. Please go ahead.
Sure. So, I mean, DeFi, like I can definitely start off with DeFi. And so DeFi in itself means, decentralized finance. And like leaving the jargon aside, what that means is, uh,
Mm.
so if you look at Ethereum, right, or any blockchain, for example, especially Ethereum, because you can run your code into it. So Ethereum, you can think of Ethereum as a decentralized supercomputer. That's how like I like to. Someone explained it to me earlier, and I think that's the best example. So think like Linux, but everyone is paid to maintain and upgrade Linux, and everyone has that share of Linux stock or something like that. Like you have an incentive to update it. You have to have an incentive to. It is open source, but it is distributed. Like everyone has a say in that company. For example, not just the Linux Foundation or Linus Torvalds, for example. Now, when you have all of these, when you have the ability to code on one single platform, which is a very big supercomputer, now you can build all sorts of interesting things on top, like lending protocols. So there are many lending borrowing platforms built on DeFi, built on Ethereum. I mean, which have billions of dollars of value locked today. So on Polygon, for example, the biggest lending market has $4 billion locked today, as of today. So that is one big market where you can put your Ethereum. You can borrow stable coins. You can use that stable coin. Stable coin means US dollar. Like anything that is one to one pegged with US dollar. So there are companies who issue that. I don't want to get into too much of that, but yeah, think of stablecoin as a US dollar on the blockchain. Simple,
Mm.
simply speaking. Now Tether, yeah, like Tether, USDC, DAI. These are Tether and USDC are centralized. DAI is decentralized. But yeah, like these are some big ones. And then lending protocols, yeah, like I said, lending protocols is very big. Then of course there are decentralized exchanges. So we have seen like WazirX is there, CoinDCX, Binance, all of these. These are centralized exchanges. Like there is a company behind it that, God forbid, goes down sometime. Your funds are gone. It's all digital. Like crypto is all digital, and if someone hacks that, there have been multiple cases of hacks. Even Binance, I remember in 2018 or 19, if I'm not wrong, they lost about 4,500 ETH.
Mm.
They were hacked, and those funds are gone. No one, I mean, they have an insurance fund. They can pay you back, but in essence, your crypto is lost. So that's why, because you are not holding that crypto yourself. So decentralized exchanges means there is no company holding that crypto. It is you that is holding that crypto. And if you're not aware of what I mean by holding crypto means you hold the keys, you hold the private keys. So you have that MetaMask wallet, or you have Argent wallet, or whichever wallet you have on your. So WazirX, what you do if you buy crypto by WazirX, you just go, you buy via debit card or credit, whatever, and you give the custody of the assets to WazirX or CoinDC or whatever it is. Now they are a custody. They hold your assets, which is a risk in crypto. Now, when you come to on-chain, like on-chain, I mean when you come onto Ethereum or onto Polygon, for example, which is a layer 2 scaling solution. Now, all those crypto are in your custody. There is a fundamental difference between centralized exchanges like Binance or Kraken or WazirX versus a decentralized exchange like Uniswap or SushiSwap. These are like, I don't know. Uniswap has, I think, $2 billion TVL. Sushi has about $2 billion TVL. This is a very fundamental difference between, yeah, exactly, this one.
Right? Yeah, it's moved up 5 billion.
Oh
It's
yeah, five billion. Yeah,
yeah. Right now, it's all of these things are on hike.
yeah, 5 billion, 5 billion. So, the biggest DEX on Polygon, which is QuickSwap, has about 1.2, $1.3 billion of TVL total
Yeah.
value locked. So this means that, these are, so when Vinayak was talking about smart contracts, the funds are essentially stored in those smart contracts,
Exactly.
which is on the blockchain. Which, so the custody, there is no custody. You can see those funds, and you hold the keys to that crypto, whether it is ETH, whether it is Bitcoin, whether it is Dogecoin, whatever XYZ it is. You hold that custody of those assets. No one can steal those from you. That is a very big difference between a decentralized exchange and decentralization in itself versus custody exchanges like Binance or Zcash or something. And all of these so yeah, like I said, Aave and Compound are the lending protocols. Then Maker is the stable coin issuer. So there are like 3-4 broad verticals of DeFi. Nothing more than that, to be honest. Like, there is one lending protocol which Aave or Compound is, where you can put your assets, and then it's a bank. Basically, it's a bank. You put your assets, you borrow more assets, and that's how you can move. You can use in other DeFi protocols. Second is a decentralized exchange. Now, decentralized exchange, if you look here, Uniswap is one decentralized exchange, Curve is a decentralized exchange, SushiSwap is a decentralized exchange,
Right.
and these are in a sense what these are. These are so there is a function, there is a mathematic function that allows two assets to be to stay in a pool, which is denoted by xy equals to k. More or less, it is a variation. Everyone has a variation of this formula, but this formula is what has xy equals to k, is what builds these exchanges. Like, xy equals to k means some asset is like both of your assets have to be equal. The product of these assets has to be equal always. So the price keeps the price is maintained according to this formula. It's a little detailed, but like, if you want to research more about it, so you can read the white paper. I think there is well amount of literature around it. And yeah, any questions if you have, please, like, put it there. Like, I think it may be a little difficult to grasp in the beginning, but yeah, like, these are some things. And yeah, like, other than that, I think is Maker is a stable coin. Can you share resources about the math? About the math, I'll have to look it up. Like, I would suggest watch some videos on kinematics. If I immediately get this, yeah, on YouTube, it's the best. Like, they have this YouTube channel which explains all of these things. And yeah, these are 2-3 major verticals on what DeFi is. And also, like, I think Yearn is something like you can think of it as like a asset management. So all these different protocols, lending protocols, if you put money in Yearn, they will give you certain amount of interest rate, and on the other side, on their back end, what they do is they allocate different amounts of capital to Compound or Aave or Maker according to their interest rates, to optimize for interest rates. So Yearn, you can think of Yearn as a investment bank sort of thing, investment bank that takes your funds and allocates it different according to different strategies that they create. So it's basically like an investment fund or a hedge fund, something like that. It's completely decentralized. Everything is on chain. You can look into the code. So yeah, that is the beauty of, like, decentralization, pretty much DeFi.
Right, indeed. Thank you, Hamza. Would you like to? Yeah. So let's have a look at even NFTs as well, right? Along with DeFi, what we have is NFTs as well, non-fungible tokens, where we can, create some assets and then put it here, like uh, on an auction. But you can see, the price is like 5,000 ETH. The people are actually buying such arts here. That are, these are basically NFT now. But exactly is an NFT, but exactly is a non-fungible token. Let me give you guys an example of a very basic example. Like when you go to market, with a 100 rupee note, what you can do is with that 100 rupee note, you can ask the shopkeeper to give you 10 rupees note, right? So the value of 10 rupee note and a 100 rupee note is exactly similar, right? So what you have done is you have broken down a 100 rupee note to 10 different 10 rupee notes, and still the value was same. Now this is something that we call fungible, right? So but exactly is non-fungible. Now when you create an art, right, when you create a painting, now that is something that could not really be duplicated, right? So an art piece is something that is non-fungible. So all the art pieces right now are being created using an NFT, and are being sold here using an NFT. The whole artistic platform. Now this whole artistic, but you can say, is an exhibition here of NFTs. Now this OpenSea.io contains a lot of NFTs which are being sold. You can see a lot of art pieces here, digital GIFs, videos, maybe, right, as well as as well as audios as well. All of these you can create an NFT of them, and you can sell them, right? So this is what exactly it is. As Hamza already shared with us about the DeFi. Now this is one of the use cases of blockchain here, the NFT as well, right? And but you can see is there are a lot more, like cross-border payments. You can, if I'm sitting here, I want to send money to America, I can send Bitcoin directly to him. I don't really have to go through banks. And then this is one of the use cases again, right? Do not really have to go through the central parties, and then we can directly go to it's a peer-to-peer transaction. So you don't really need the borders there for anything. Now supply chain and logistic monitoring, something, I think Luxo is basically working on something like this. Now they are trying to use blockchain for supply chain and logistic monitoring. Now the last I gathered, but let's see. We'll definitely get to know more as they develop it further, right? So these are some of the basic use cases of blockchain. I think we have already covered a lot about Ethereum. Like, why have we chosen Ethereum being the focus of our presentation, our session here? So Ethereum is basically a programmable network where we can deploy code to the network, and then the network resolves that code and sends us data. Now this is a very basic, but you can think of it as is just a Node.js server. A lot of you might know what a Node.js server exactly is. You basically get send a call there, compute that data, send and then create an output, send that output, and there it is. You get your desired output when you send a desired input, right? So something like this happens with contracts as well. It's basically data. But blockchain exactly is just a means to store a data. Let me clarify that here. It's just a means to store a data. It's very much similar to your tables and um to your tabular structure that you have for MySQL, Postgres, all those things. It's just that it is decentralized. It is being spread into a different nodes. Those nodes, they contain data, right? So basically, you can imagine these as nodes, different nodes that contain data. And what you do is you basically call on those nodes to get the data, or you call on those nodes to store the data. There are different processes to store the data. We have seen mining. Mining is something that is that is more like proof of work to store the data, and all those things will definitely, that is something that would definitely is more than what we can have in this session. But we'll try if we can incorporate that. But the major thing is that this is more like a database only. It's just a different way to store a data, right? More secure and more decentralized, right? But decentralized in technical terms, what it means is that the data is being spread into a lot of nodes, and none of a central party is in charge, right? You do not have one MySQL database. Just if I analog it to the to the web 2 part, you do not have just one MySQL database. What you have is multiple databases, right? And all those databases are in sync with each other. You can basically get data from any of those nodes. You don't have to worry about which node you are going to take the data from. Now, this is a very crucial part of blockchain, because this is how we were able to move towards decentralization, right? We were able to say that we do not need a central party. Let's move towards decentralization, where the control lies with the user, where the security of a user is paramount, right? So this is what blockchain it does in right now. This is how it has created such revolutionary products. As you can see, all of these are there because of this particular concept only, right? Now these are all the projects that are on DeFi, mostly all of the projects that are on DeFi, right? And but one thing to note here is, if you see the chain that they are built on, what you'll see is mostly the chain that we have here is Ethereum, right? So this is something that is quite cool, I must say. The Ethereum has that capacity to do that, right? None of the other chains were able to create such a big thing as well, right? So that's why the focus is Ethereum, like how to get started. And one of the things I think a developer must get started from is Ethereum. Now, in Ethereum, what should be the start point, right? So in Ethereum, the start points could be smart contracts, where you can start building a smart contract. Like what I've already mentioned, what a smart contract is. It is something that is being deployed right on the chain, and Ethereum's EVM, what it does is it computes it and then sends the data back to you, right? So what it does is it basically stores the data, right? You can set that data and get that data. Now, this is as simple. Now this is a very simple contract that you can actually deploy on the Ethereum chain. So this is how this is the point where you can get started. Now if you see this contract, what you can feel is the syntax is not even that different than Java. There are some differences for sure, but I do not think so. Like all of you must be developers from a prestige university, right? So you guys have the caliber to understand the syntax, and it might take you a day or two maximum to get started on smart contracts, right? So this is the pivot that you can use. Just go ahead, deploy a smart contract first, see what exactly it is, and then you can map whatever I've said along with it, right? This is basically storing data in a particular way and computing data in a particular way. That's it, right? There's nothing more to it, and there's not there's this is the simplicity of it, right? Obviously there is a lot more to it, but all of those, it comes with the use cases that you want to build, right? If you want to build a DEX, then you definitely the programs, it must be a bit complicated than what we are seeing right here. This is a very simple program where you can just store a data and get that data. That's it, right? But what we need to do is interact with this contract, right? Just like just like firing an API. If I'm It's not like that. It's just analogous to that. Please do keep in mind, right? So it's more like that. So this is the smart contract. What I will suggest is, for all of you guys interested, go ahead, build a smart contract, right? Start with just a simple video on how to build a smart contract, right? And a 10-15 minutes video on a YouTube will suffice for you guys just to get started on how to build a smart contract, right? And it's quite easy as well. You can actually get it in the developer docs of the Ethereum as well, like how to build a smart contract. We'll share those docs with you by the end of this session, so that you guys can actually go through whatever we are saying here, and try and test it, like how exactly it is working, right? So let's clear the buzz about Web 2 and Web 3 as well now, because we have already understood what a blockchain exactly is. It is a decentralized, more secure way of storing the data, right? So But Web 1 was like Web 1 happened in, I think, 1990s, 9 to till 2000. What happened was a lot of developers were on Web 1, where HTML came into picture, where we have some normal infrastructure of the websites, HTML7. I think most of you must have seen those websites where the traditional websites which looked like blocks only. The if a lot of you must have seen some of the old videos of people developing code, you must have seen the blocks website. It was not that smooth, it was not that good, right? And now just go ahead and see the websites, they are so flamboyant, they're so good. So what happened was, then Web 2 came into picture, frameworks came, right? And what we were able to develop was a cloud driven computing. We right now what we do is we create servers for our computing, right? And those servers are centralized right now. You have control of your server, your data, and all those things. Now what if you were not in control, but your customers were in control, of, for that matter, your the peers that you have in your system are in control? So that is what Web3 is all about, where the control is shifted to the user, right? Because of decentralization and because of more secure things here, users are mainly focused on Web3, right? And this graph right here shows the market value of Web 1, Web 2, and Web 3, which is on an increase, as you can see. So being a Web 3 developer right now is going to be very, very profitable, as we have already shared like the data with you, the contracts with you that hold so much power, right? The contract code, if you see, go ahead and see the code of Aave, all right? What you can see is, it's not that big, and for a very small piece of code, right? The Just look at the value that Aave holds. Like, it's in billions of dollars. So this is the scale that we are talking about here, right? Uh, I don't know how many of you are interested in making money, right? But if this does not entice you, I do not know what will, right? So, but I'll suggest is have a look, right? We'll share the resources with you. Polygon is actually doing a lot of good work in onboarding developers as well. They are even giving a platform where you can actually chat, right? And even there are experienced developers on their platform where you guys can connect with them, right? We'll share the link of the Discord group after the end of this conversation, right? So what I'll suggest you guys is that ask questions, as many as possible, right, on their group, so that you guys can at least be in touch with the professionals that there are in the industry and learn from them, right? So, all right, let's move ahead. We'll have a conversation about this in the end as well, right? The limitations of Ethereum network. Hamza, would you like to take this? I think you are more than sufficient for this, because one of the things is that Polygon is already working on the limitations of Ethereum network. Polygon being one of the most reputed, if I'm right, I'm actually right. It's the most reputed project in India right now, right? Before Polygon, it was Matic, so it's most reputed project. So let's look at like how Polygon is actually overtaking the limitations that Ethereum network has.
So yeah, like I think I first got exposed to Ethereum in 2017 when the first bull cycle, like the big bull cycle, it happened. I was in college back, and then like everyone, I bought some Bitcoin and
Network.
sorry.
So current limitation with Ethereum network is
Sorry, I didn't hear that. Can you type it in the text maybe? Yeah, so like I was saying, so so in 2017, the first issues of Ethereum scaling happened. I remember when in 2017 there was this game called CryptoKitties. I'm not sure how many of you played, but in CryptoKitties, it was something mixed with NFTs. So there were different kittens, and those kittens, you can breed them, and every kitten was different to each other, and everyone got crazy with grooming kittens, buying different kittens, auctioning. All of those things are happening, and then the first Ethereum congestion happened. And the reason it is that Ethereum initially days it had to be very secure, and the TPS, like the transaction per second throughput of the blockchain, is about 10 to 15 TPS as of today. So just for a comparison, like Visa, I think Visa, Mastercard, these payments, they have around 2000 TPS. Their network have about 2000 TPS, and for that scale to achieve, Ethereum, there has to be a massive improvement in the scale, in the throughput. And again, like last year, again, when we started looking into DeFi, when DeFi actually emerged in like September or August, September, it's called DeFi summer, in the crypto space. Gas costs were highest in the history of Ethereum, and hit about 50, 60, even $100 for one swap. That was nothing compared to earlier this year in February, March, when gas costs, and by gas I mean, so if you understand what gas is basically the amount that you pay for your transaction to be accepted in the Ethereum network. It is the amount, it's the tax. You can think of it as a tax that you have to pay for your transaction to happen. So gas cost, for every transaction that you did on Uniswap or SushiSwap or wherever, Aave, I remember there during that crash in around February or March, gas costs were about $500, $600 for one swap. And so there people again started looking at, okay, this is not suitable for small buyers, like for people like $100, $200 or $500, people like you and me. So people with $500 or $1,000, you can't trade with gas fees being like 10% or 20% of your trade. It does not make sense. And then a lot of layer 2 solutions started coming. Now what layer 2 means? Layer 2 means taking your, so there are two things like on a blockchain. So there is the computation, and then there is the finality, the security of the transaction. So Ethereum provides the security, finality, consensus of these transactions, whereas the computation is done on a separate chain, on a layer 2. And that is where Polygon comes into the picture. Polygon is a low gas, high throughput blockchain, acting as a layer 2, where the computation can be moved to a separate chain, that is Polygon, whereas the finality of the transactions, or not finality I would say, but the consensus of the transactions and everything happens on Ethereum. So the security is shared of Ethereum, whereas the computation, everything is done off chain, of Ethereum, I mean on Polygon. That is a major use case of Polygon, and today we are doing about 7 times the transactions of Ethereum. And Polygon, if you look at today's gas prices on Polygon are about like $4 or $5. That's it, like even less than that, I think $2-3, because Polygon has taken a huge chunk of load, users, and computation off chain on Polygon rather than the mainnet. So, and then this is how, like if you think the next million users, if they have to come to DeFi, they will not be coming onto Ethereum. They will be using Ethereum as a consensus layer, like a consensus as a service sort of thing, like how SaaS is, or all of these things are. Like it will be Ethereum in the near term will be as a consensus as a service, whereas other layer 2 services like optimistic rollups, these are some of the techniques, like optimistic rollups, ZK rollups, and Polygon itself. So they will do all the computation off chain and then put everything on chain for finality. So this is how Ethereum, we are part of that ecosystem, Ethereum ecosystem, and this is how layer 2 like Polygon or these things will scale. I would suggest to look into the Polygon documentation. I think that's the best way. I'll just share that documentation here maybe. That's the best way to start developing, as well as as well as understand the architecture and like basics of Polygon. I think that will be very helpful. Yeah,
Right.
I hope that explains a little bit.
Great. I think we might have the docs. Okay. All right. So I think that is it from our side. What we can do is we can welcome some questions. I think the time's also running up, so we just have 7-8 minutes left with us. So what we can do is we can take some quick questions. Right. So if you have some questions, guys, please fire up. I think, Hamza, we were not that clear in the discussion that there should not be any question or so. There should be some questions,
Yeah,
guys.
yeah. Even I don't think I was so crystal clear on getting everything. I don't know, like basic.
Yeah, so I
Right.
think there was this one question earlier. What is a
Hmm.
nonce?
You can take that.
Yeah. So, Hamza, would you like to take that? Or should I?
You can take it. You can take it.
Okay. Uh, so what nonce is like, it's basically it's an integer value, right? I'll try to explain it in as simple way as possible, right? So what nonce is, it's an integer value, right? Which when we mine a block, we need to guess that integer value, that nonce value, right? It's the basic use of a nonce is that, right? I hope that it's clear. Okay, how can we get started with blockchain? I mean, prerequisites from, okay, yeah, this is a good question. Like, what could be the prerequisites of getting started on a blockchain, right? Uh, what you can do is like, what I've seen is most of the things that are built on JavaScript, right? Basically, if you know any language, right, you can get started with blockchain. There is no particular prerequisite to get started with blockchain. A basic understanding of your MySQL databases, how your databases work, your data structures, right? I think some of that is actually given in your curriculum as well. I think most of you guys are developers here, so all of that knowledge is there with you. There is no prerequisite as such. You can just go right now, right? And uh, I think Hamza has already shared the docs with you. You can go there, and it's as simple as that. Just read it and start developing it. It's as simple. What you need to do is, but there's only one prerequisite, that you should be ready for it, and you should be able to make your because most of the problems that there are is that there are not some good resources to it. So what you need to do is you need to actually read the documentation and then get the stuff done. So you should be ready for reading. That's it. That's the only prerequisite. I hope I have answered your question, Mukesh. Anything else that we have here? Any other question? Okay. So it's all right. In this session, website was open to show blocks hashes. Can you mention that? What's that used for? Any other? Oh, so there is no other use case for that website. Let me share the link with you guys in the chat here, so that if you want, you can take it. Now, this has been developed by Anders Brownsworth, right? So what he did was he created an open source project just for this purpose, for explaining blockchain, right? So this is basically an open source project. Anybody can actually take it, develop it, and you can even fire up your websites and then have it there. So, but obviously there's no use for it because he's already hosting it. So this is an open source project, and there is only one use case for it, that is understanding it, understanding what chains are, what tokens are, what distributed chains are, all of those things. It's just for that purpose. There's no other use for it. All right. Okay. So what we can do is, if there are any more questions, you guys can get connected with us, or you can share your questions on this Discord group as well. I think we'll share some more links as well with you guys. Okay, does NFT have any disadvantage? By disadvantage, if you mean like you're creating your efforts, and then if your product is not getting sold, then yes, because your efforts are being there, and it's not actually getting sold, so you're not really getting paid for your NFT, right? But definitely it's a very good thing for developer if they can understand how to create one, how to mint one, and all those things. So there is no much disadvantages of NFT. We will get the resources in that. You can definitely ask for it, right? And someone from the team will definitely get back to you and provide you with the resources that you want. Just simply ask the questions that you need, right? Whatever problems that you're facing, you can ask it there. Someone from the community will come and help you. The crypto community is really great, right? Everyone in the crypto community are really helpful. There was a day when when even I started, a lot of people, a lot of strangers, I must say, from the communities, they helped me grow, and they helped me create stuff. So this was like some years back this happened, right? So right now the crypto community is a bit bigger and even more compliant. So just ask, just get in the community, get to the Discord group and ask, and ask and we shall get. So it's that case. So you would be fine, right? I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I think just one thing to add here, like even I didn't know anything about crypto a couple of months back, not couple, but like 4 or 5 months back, not much. But now you just ask questions. I think everyone is so early in this space, and the more people will answer you, even their clarity will, like their understanding gets better. So they also try to answer a lot of good questions. So please feel free to do that.
Right, indeed. I have also experienced that firsthand. So what we need just to get started is to stay in a community, ask relevant questions, and definitely they'll come back to us. Can we really get started with the gaming laptops? Though they have mining can really be started with gaming laptops.
What will
Depend-
you now? What will you mine now? Like which
Right.
currency is left? Like you can't mine Bitcoin. It's not feasible now. Ethereum will become POS very soon. So there's no point mining Ethereum. Doge, I'm not sure. I'm not too familiar with Doge. How it's still like in 2017 it was Chia. I don't know. But in 2017 I think it was a big rage. It was easy then. I think now I haven't heard. Most of them are moving to proof of stake. Like even I think Doge or Litecoin, they will be moving sometime.
Let's. Okay. Actually, it's not really illegal even now. If you see the RBI notices and all that stuff, it's perfectly legal to transact through crypto. The KYC is needed, so all of those. Okay, so there we might need those skills. Okay. Can you explain like government will transaction using crypto? So there we might need those skills. Like, what skills will you need if so mining skills and all that, right? What is suggested is that you should not really go for mining, because mining here in India specifically is not that profitable because of the electricity costs and because of the electronic costs that we bear. Mining is not really profitable, and because to mine you might have to go for assets like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and as Hamza already shared that it is very difficult to mine Bitcoin right now at this particular time, because the computational power that you need is gonna skyrocket. So you just need a farm for that now. For Ethereum, it's gonna soon be POS, so it doesn't really make sense. So what you need to do is you need to understand how to create, right? Instead of mining, what I'll suggest is create dApps, decentralized applications, right? Now these smart contracts that we talked about, now these are the basis of creating dApps, where you can basically create an application which is decentralized. There is no central control to it. So what I'll suggest is try creating that. That is something that has a lot of value. even more than mining, you guys can get value from that. I hope that answers your question, Lokesh.
I agree 100%. 100%.
Indeed.
Like there is too much money outside. Like it does not make
Definitely.
sense to do this.
Definitely.
Right
Now,
there are very less developers. Very less developers.
yes, this is a space. This is a very void space right now that has been created. Because there's a lot of money, there are very few developers. Now that is why this session makes a lot of sense, right? And I think that a lot can be done in that space. A lot can be earned from that space. Okay, I think that is it for location. All right then, guys. I think we should end this meeting. Definitely reach out to us if you guys have any questions. Like we are there for you guys, and we'll try and answer it to the best of our knowledge. Right? Great then. It was very nice meeting you guys. Great audience again. Very great.
Thanks, Vinayak. I hope that all the participants now know a bit more about blockchain than they did a few hours ago. ECL is glad to have you both, and that we're really glad that you could do this. We look forward to collaborating in the future as well. And
Definitely.
to all the participants, we'll be circulating a form to get your certificate. So please do surely fill that. Thanks.
Love to be here, Ayush, and
Pleasure.
yeah, it was really great. Thank you for having us here.
Likewise. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. All right then, guys. Bye bye. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.